Welcome! In this series of short videos, we will look at topics common to both the PowerBasic console and Windows compilers. Today we will look at compiling your applications on the command line. Auto building. Let's consider the scenario of a single developer who gets told by their manager to build an application to perform a specific task. The developer takes notes, gathers information for the requirement, and then creates the application. It works and the manager is pleased. Since the first application was a success, the developer gets asked to create a second application. On looking at the needs of the new application, there is some code which has already been written for the first application that can be reused, so the developer creates a common library that can be used when compiling either application. This goes well, and a third application is needed, and it too benefits from the code already written, and the code library becomes larger. Working with libraries speeds up your developments, as you're building on a foundation of existing code that will have already been tested and used in production. Your manager decides, as work is picking up, to expand the team and hire another developer, as many more applications will be needed. The original developer now needs to provide the new developer with information on how everything that's already been developed actually works, and probably do some documentation on the libraries. As the number of developers, applications, and libraries grows, the team runs the risk of breaking applications by amending some common library. The problem may not become obvious until long after the change has been made, when one developer attempts to amend an application only to find that it doesn't even compile. So how can we find out if we have a code problem faster? So what we need to do to find out whether our applications are all still going to compile is to use a form of continuous integration. Now there are a number of tools you can download, both free and paid for, which will perform continuous integration for you. But since you're watching a PowerBasic video, you already have all the tools at your command in order to perform this yourself. What I've done for this video, I've put together a series of source applications, based mostly on the applications we have done in previous videos. There are 4 applications in here: the command line application, the Game of Life, a test app, and a web CGI app. Now, all of these applications I'm going to demonstrate today are console applications. However, the same technique we're using for console applications can be used for PowerBasic Windows applications as well. So for my own development, I've probably written a ratio of 10 console applications to every 1 Windows application. So you may find that you have many more console applications to compile than Windows ones. So today we'll concentrate on the console ones. In order to test this out, what I've done is I've amended these 4 console applications so they all use one set of common libraries. So any change made to any of these libraries here could potentially affect all 4 applications. What we're going to do today is to set something up that will automatically compile all 4 of these applications and let us know whether the compilation has been successful or not. So if we have a look at the help file that comes with the console application, you will find if you search for command line that there is a PBCC command line switches topic. These command line switches will allow you to compile your application on the command line. This allows you to batch up all the applications you wish to compile and do them one after the other. This process can be set up as a scheduled task on one of your computers, and this can run every hour, twice a day, once a week, however often you consider it to be needed. I've certainly found running it once or twice a day is more than enough. That way, should some change be made to a library in the morning, by the afternoon you'll find out that you've effectively broken X number of applications and need to go back in and change the library again. That way you will not have a long wait to find out. So how can we perform this? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to create a small batch file. And we're going to put it into the root of the code directory. Now, I'm using a batch file because it's a very straightforward way of doing what we want to do. Once we've built this proof of concept, we can then go on and actually build something more elaborate that will build both console and Windows applications. So as you will see from this File Explorer window, there are 3 drives on this machine. And all the programs we're going to be actually doing will be inside this source folder. Now, one command that Windows has provided way back to the DOS days is to allow you to set up virtual directories. And that's what I'm going to do first of all. Using these virtual folders will allow us to keep the path length to a minimum. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a virtual Y drive to where the code actually sits. And then I'm going to set up a second to where the Windows API routines sit. So that way we'll have an X and a Y drive. Now these are virtual folders, these will only exist for the current session of Windows. Once you reboot your machine or a different user signs on, these will disappear. So we'll save this first of all, and we'll just run it. And you'll see we now have an X and a Y drive set up. So that means the length to get into these folders is much shorter. So now that we have these set up, we can just remark them out because they will be maintained for this current session of Windows. Now, having done that, we'll put a message out just to see what we're actually doing. The first one I'm going to build is the test application. Now, as you can see from the code, this application is very small, it doesn't exactly do much. But it's a proof of concept, it will prove that it will actually work. The next thing we'll do is we'll change directory into our Y directory. So we're now pointing directly at the test app folder, which saves putting a long path into our command. What we need to do now is to execute our PowerBasic console compiler. So we'll locate where the PowerBasic console compiler folder actually exists. It's inside the bin folder. Now we're not looking for the CC edit program, which is the one you normally run to create and edit your applications. We're looking for the pbcc.exe file. This is the one that will actually do the compilation for you. So we want the path to there, and we're after pbcc.exe. I'm putting double quotes around these just in case any of you have spaces in your folders. The next thing we do is to do /l. Now this is to tell the application what we want the log file called. Now we'll keep it simple and we'll call it the same thing as the application itself. The application is called testapp.bas. We'll keep the log file the same. Since we intend running this as a scheduled task, there'll be no one there to actually watch it, therefore we don't want any message boxes popping up for the user to press OK. So /q runs it in quiet mode. Then we have to give it a list of where the source file is and where any include files are likely to be. Now since we've set our X drive up to be the Windows API, the first thing we do is on the /i is to put in X as a path. And the list of paths is semicolon delimited. And now we're going to put in the route to where our code actually sits. So since we've got that set up on the Y drive, we will put that in. We will go to our source folder, test app folder, and the application we want to compile is testapp.bas. So we just save this batch file and we'll have a quick look at our folder. So if we look at the Y drive, inside the source folder, inside the test app folder, there is our source code. So there was no executable sitting in there, but when we run the batch file, that should create 2 files in here, one being the exe and the other being the log file. So if we double click on our batch file now, and there they have appeared. the PowerBasic console application has been called on the command line. It has found the .bas file, it has compiled it, created the exe, and produced a log. And if we have a quick look at the log, we'll see that it has quite successfully compiled our executable. Now, if there were any error with the code, let's just remove both of these first of all. So we can do it again. We'll nip back to our application and we will put in something that would not compile. So if we try running our batch file again, there we go. Now there's no exe appeared, but there has been a log. If we look at the log, there's our error message. So we've now done one on the command line. Let's see if we can do some more applications. So if we add the command line application by the same approach, we will put in a message to the console to say we're building the command line. We will change the directory to the command line folder. We will call the PowerBasic console compiler. The name of the log is command line, and the name of the source file we're going to be compiling is commandline.bas. So if we have a quick look back at our command line folder, there was no executable in there. If we save our batch file, run the batch file again, and there is commandline.exe, and a log to say it has successfully compiled, and all the files it's pulled in. So, as you can see from this, it's a simple matter of adding on more and more to our batch file. So we've now got it set up to do all four applications: the test app, the command line, the Game of Life program, and a web CGI application. So if we save that and run it again, it will run through quite happily. And if we have a look at our web CGI app, there's the executable, and the Game of Life, and there is the executable in that one. So building in a command line is actually quite straightforward. Although we have this inside a batch file at the moment, ideally you want to have it inside an application. You want to build an application whose job it is to call all this on the command line. And having called each of these applications to compile them, the next task would be to test by reading the log files to see whether the application had been successful or not. That way you can do something quite straightforward, like produce an output file, which can then be posted onto our website, or you can email the team to let them know that a particular application has not compiled, giving them a link to where the error file actually sits. What we'll do in the next video is we will actually build the application to perform that task. But for the moment, we'll leave it in the batch file. I'll put all these source files up in the website as normal. I will rename the build.bat file to build.txt, just so you have no problems actually downloading it. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.